The mansion of Mr. Richard Alastair, one of the city's most powerful millionaires, stood like a palace on the hill, its marble floors polished to a mirror shine and its walls lined with priceless art, but behind all the glitter and glory, there lived a young maid named Clara who had come from a poor village, her hands rough from years of washing clothes in cold rivers and her back aching from long hours of sweeping dusty roads. Yet her heart was as gentle as the morning sun, always humble, always ready to serve. And though most of the household ignored her, she treated everyone with kindness, especially Ethan, the millionaire's only son, a bright-eyed boy of 7 who often sneaked away from his strict tutors to sit in the kitchen with Clara while she prepared meals, listening to her stories about simple village life, chasing fireflies, and eating freshly baked bread straight from the clay oven. Things Ethan had never experienced in his privileged but lonely world, and it was during one of those quiet afternoons when fate decided to twist everything, because just as Clara was cleaning the grand hallway, she heard the sudden crash of glass followed by the frantic screams of Ethan's voice, and rushing into the study, she saw the boy lying on the floor, clutching his chest, his lips turning pale, his little breaths coming in short gasps until suddenly he stopped breathing altogether, and for a moment, the world froze, the paintings on the walls blurred, and the sound of the ticking clock became louder than thunder in her ears, but Clara did not hesitate. She scooped the boy into her arms with trembling strength, ignoring the shouts of the butler who accused her of overstepping her bounds, ignoring the shocked stares of the other servants who did nothing but stand frozen, and she ran out of the mansion barefoot, carrying Ethan against her chest, her heart pounding as though it would burst, rushing down the long driveway and into the street where she waved desperately for a taxi, shouting for help. And when one finally screeched to a stop, she begged the driver with tears streaming down her face to take them to the hospital as fast as possible, her voice cracking with desperation, and the driver, moved by the sight, pressed the accelerator without another word, racing through red lights as Clara kept whispering prayers over Ethan's still body, willing him to breathe, to survive, because in that moment, the boy was no longer just her master's son, he was her child too. The little boy who had trusted her, who had smiled at her stories, who had told her once in secret that she was his best friend, and as the hospital came into view with its glaring white lights, Clara's strength almost gave out, but she refused to collapse, storming through the emergency doors and screaming for a doctor, her cries echoing through the sterile halls until a team of doctors rushed forward, taking Ethan from her arms and laying him on a gurney, attaching tubes and pressing masks against his face, and as they wheeled him away, Clara fell to her knees, her apron soaked with tears, her body shaking, but even then she whispered, "Please, God, don't take him away." And in that moment, something miraculous began to unfold, because though Clara thought she was alone, in truth, unseen eyes were watching from a distance. Richard Alastair himself, the millionaire who had always thought of Clara as nothing more than a lowly maid, had just arrived at the hospital after being alerted by his staff, and he had seen with his own eyes the way Clara had risked everything, had carried his son through the streets without caring for her own safety, had screamed for help like a mother would, and for the first time in his life, the cold walls around his heart began to crack, but Clara didn't notice. She sat there on the cold floor, hands clasped, whispering promises that if Ethan lived, she would never stop protecting him, and little did she know that this night, this desperate act of courage, was about to change her life forever, because when Ethan finally gasped his first weak breath again and the doctors announced he was stable, the millionaire's gaze fell upon Clara with a weight she could not yet understand, and the story of a humble maid and a powerful man began its true chapter, one that would lead to revelations, gratitude, and a gesture so profound it would leave the world stunned. And before we go deeper into what happens next, dear viewer, if your heart is beating fast right now and you want to know how one act of kindness can change an entire destiny, make sure you subscribe to this channel so you don't miss chapter 2 of this incredible story, because what happens next will shake the very foundation of their lives and prove that sometimes, the people we overlook are the very ones who can save us.